In this video, we are looking at HTTP status codes in fastapi, how to set the right code on your responses, use readable names instead of magic numbers, and why getting this right actually changes how client applications behave. It is one of those small details that separates a well-designed API from a confusing one. Here is the problem. When you write a post endpoint that creates a new record or a delete endpoint that removes one, fastapi will still send back a 200 OK by default. That is technically wrong. Clients, whether a browser, a mobile app, or a testing tool like Postman, use status codes to decide what to do next. If every response is 200, those clients cannot tell creation from retrieval or deletion from an error. Think of a post office clerk. When you hand over a parcel, they do not just nod and say done, they hand you a receipt with a specific outcome printed on it. Accepted for delivery means something was created. Nothing to collect means there is no content to show you. HTTP status codes work the same way. Each number is a precise receipt that tells the client exactly what kind of response they received. Fastapi gives you two things to work with. First, every path decorator at app.post, at app.delete, and so on accepts a status underscore code argument where you declare the code that a successful response should carry. Second, fastapi ships a status module full of named constants, so instead of writing the bare number 201, you write status.http underscore 201 underscore created, which is far more readable and impossible to mistype silently. At the top, we import fastapi and the status module plus base model from Pydantic. The item model defines the shape of our data. The create underscore item function is decorated with at app.post, and we pass status underscore code equals status.http underscore 201 underscore created. That constant is just the integer 201, but named, so its meaning is obvious. When a post succeeds, fastapi sends 201. The read underscore item endpoint uses 200, which is the default, but declaring it explicitly makes the intent clear. The delete underscore item endpoint returns none and carries status.http underscore 204 underscore nocontent 204, which tells the client there is no response body to parse. When your application starts, fastapi reads the status underscore code you declared on the decorator and records it in the root's metadata. When a request arrives and your function returns successfully, fastapi wraps the return value into a response and stamps that recorded code onto it. You never touch the response object yourself. That same code also appears in the automatically generated Open API documentation, so your API contract is accurate without any extra work. If you ever need a different code for a specific request, you can accept a response parameter in your function and set its status underscore code manually. Use an explicit status underscore code anytime the meaning of a successful response is more specific than it worked. Creating something means 201. Deleting something with nothing to return means 204. On the other hand, watch out for a few traps. If you declare 204 but still return a body, clients are required to discard it, so your data goes nowhere. Never swallow errors into a 200 response. That is what HTTP exception is for. And always prefer the named constants in the status module over bare numbers. A typo in a number will not raise an error, but will absolutely confuse your clients. To recap, set status underscore code on the path decorator and use the named constants from fastapi.status rather than bare numbers. 201 signals that a resource was created. 204 signals success with no body. These are not cosmetic choices. The right code changes how every client that calls your API behaves, and it makes your automatically generated documentation accurate from day one.